Welcome to Maven Cast, deep dive conversations with industry experts designed to move your business, technology, and thinking forward.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tim Beerman, the CTO for Ensono, and the host for today's edition of the Maven Cast. Today, we'll be talking about enterprise AI. My guest today is Paul Gottsegen. Paul is the CMO and president of ISG Client Experience, overseeing marketing, branding, and communications for the firm. Previously, Paul led ISG research to record success and continues as its chair, with a career spanning leadership roles at HP, Dell, Compaq, and as CMO for Mindtree and Infosys. Paul blends deep product marketing expertise with experience managing large sales organizations and P&Ls, a hybrid skill he calls a superpower. He also serves as the board chair of the Gastric Cancer Foundation and holds a degree in computer science from Brandeis University and an MBA from the Wharton School. Paul, welcome to Maven Cast. I'm really glad to have you here with us today.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate the warm introduction, and I'm excited to be part of the Maven Cast.
Well, great. Well, Paul, let's dive in here. So, Paul, you described AI as a tidal wave, not a fake out. Why do you believe AI is a true inflection point for the enterprise?
Yep, it's an inflection point for sure, Tim, but it's tricky. There have been false starts on AI. Matter of fact, in my bio that you nicely gave me, I was a computer science major way back in the 80s at a school called Brandeis. And guess what? AI was the focus. We were all in on AI. I thought AI was going to be the next big thing. None of us got jobs in AI. Fast forward a generation later, my son graduated college in 2015. He majored in AI, no jobs in AI in 2015. So AI has been rattling around for decades with a lot of false starts. So there are a lot of naysayers, and it's hard to spot inflection points. If you remember, Tim, everybody was excited about the metaverse. We thought we'd have these avatars and designer clothes. That was like, we were all in a couple of years back on metaverse, and that was a fake out, not a tidal wave. And I've seen inflection points are hard to spot. I remember when Amazon, way back in the mid 90s, when I first heard about Amazon and companies selling books on the internet, we all thought this will never amount to anything. It just sounds so odd. So sometimes an inflection point's right in front of you and you can't see it, but this one's happening. This AI 2 years ago when Gen AI hit the scene, and everything that's come behind it. Now, agentic AI and all of the software programming is done on copilots, GitHub copilots or other copilots. But more than anything else, watch Silicon Valley and the mountain of investment that's happening around AI. And, there will be some falling out. It'll be a little bit like the dot-com bust where there's a lot of overfunding and there might be many firms that don't make it. But what came out of the dot-com bust was Facebook and Instagram and all the firms that run the world today came out of that. And I think that inflection point is definitely happening now. So if you're not riding this tidal wave, you better get on it fast. Not you, but everybody.
No, I agree, Paul. And it's actually interesting because thinking about this and just thinking of my own experience and what Ensono has gone through, I remember in 2022, the end of 2022, ChatGPT launched, and it's kind of this, everybody in their personal lives started getting to play with it, and it started showing up, and it's like, hey, I've been able to do this, I've been able to do that. When are we going to use this? When can I have access to this cool technology? And as a CTO and as a technologist, we're also playing around with it, seeing this coming as well. I guess from my experience, it's really one of the first times that technology is really the democratization of technology to really, you didn't have to be a computer scientist or a programmer or a data scientist to actually kind of experience the Gen AI side of this AI, which kind of drove, seems like a new emphasis and a new need and a new desire from really the masses of our associates. And so it generated a lot of this tidal wave kind of you're talking about as enterprise IT, it's like, well, how do I secure this? What is this? Which things should I allow our associates to have access to? Which models are the right things to use in Gen AI? And it also kind of started this whole groundswell, just, well, what is AI? It's in re-educating everybody on, well, AI has been decades in the making, but there's some really great new capabilities are really coming to market now. So it's really a fascinating time just seeing this groundswell, this tidal wave you positioned of just things coming along that just people just picked up overnight almost, it seems.
Look, I just want to jump on that because that's one of the really unique elements that it affects everybody, not just IT, every department. There's a list of all the big departments that are in AI now and the ones that are not. I think like Treasury was the bottom of the list. I thought, well, they just don't know what's hitting them. Back to Silicon Valley, what's interesting, knowing what I know, is that there are thousands of young associates at every VC firm, at every private equity firm, pouring over every single dollar of the global economy and figuring out how they're going to transform that aspect of the economy through AI. So it really supercharges everything that's going on. And you're right. Like AI, when Gen AI came out, there was a lot of people saying, well, but AI has been around for a while. And now if you say Gen AI, people call me out and say, well, no, there's a agentic AI. And don't forget about machine learning. So there's different pockets of it, and maybe machine learning is a little bit old school now, but the agentic AI and I just call it AI, make it easy. But you're right, it affects everybody. There's nobody untouched. If you think you're untouched, you're just not thinking about it correctly yet.
Absolutely. Well, kind of building on that. So if you look at where AI is coming, it's like the changes with Gen AI, agentic AI. What are some of the biggest misconceptions you see about AI in the enterprise space? How should organizations think about these, overcome these as they look at to adapt and leverage these newer technologies?
A couple of points. One thought there is there's a misconception. Here we are almost in 2025 as we're recording this. There's a misconception that, people are still piloting proof of concept, kicking the tires. Well, that was true maybe a year ago. Today, that might have been true, but no. I mean, ISG, we have 900 clients. We work with clients all over the world. We have a good view of things. They might not be refactoring their entire company on AI yet, but whether it's the marketing department, software, IT, you name it, every company is utilizing AI to a greater degree than you might think. The pilot phase is over. So, if you're a software company, you likely have not refactored your core software platform yet. That's a big job, take a little while, but your marketing department, your ad department, your software department, everybody's using it and the clients are using it. But we do a lot of surveys, and we did a survey it's really interesting. What have enterprises learned over really the first full year of Gen AI? If you think like August of 2023 to August of 2024, when they really had a chance to sink their teeth in. And what they felt good about, what they felt confident that they did correctly, was they had the right ambition. They invested a lot of time and money, and then they kind of jumped on it. But when you ask them, like, well, what mistakes did you make? It's all around coordination and governance. Like, we went in 100 different directions. We didn't really have a system for systemic trial and error and learning. And this is where Ensono comes in, among other great companies. The feedback was they didn't lean on experts enough. They didn't have the expertise, and they need help. So and I would say the other misconception is there's a lot of inhibitors to scaling AI in the enterprise. The ones that you know about, like governance, privacy, security, far and away in our surveys, it's lack of AI skills within the enterprise. So they're going to lean on providers and other experts, and they're frantically looking to up-level the existing people because it's hard to hire those skills. But when I tell you that inhibitor is double whatever inhibitor number 2 is, which I think is around privacy and security. But the lack of AI skills is a bigger issue than most people really can imagine right now.
I would agree. Some of the things that we've done, that we've seen in Ensono, we've been through the pilot phase, and I think you're absolutely right, is in not only just running for pilot's sake, but just really finding those business problems and really looking at the problems that we have as an enterprise and how can those be solved with those newer technologies. You go all the way up to the front of with marketing and sales, is how these tools can be used to build marketing materials much faster. There's a lot of things that can happen as far as how do you process all the information about leads using AI to narrow that down to things you can really go after and target. Software development, I think, is the one area that we've seen personally, internally, a lot of value. And it's one area I think everybody universally sees like, well, I can generate software much faster, much more reliably using these if I put it in the hands of the right parts of the organization. But I think one thing that we've seen too, and some of the missteps along the way, is just really the enablement session of this, because I think you touched on it, is the lack of skill sets. And even where we have skill sets, is getting people to think differently about how to use this technology. The computer scientists, those guys, they've been bred in this, and they know how to use these. But if you think about the Gen AI side, a lot of it is just getting people to think differently. It's like, well, don't Google it anymore. Use these tools to pull this. There's whole new ways of thinking. Or if you're not using these tools, you're really missing an opportunity to really improve your productivity. And regardless of what role you have in the company, I think a lot of enterprises early on missed how key enablement was to actually driving the success of some of these tools. Kind of to your point on the skill set, the expertise, the knowledge, the training.
That's spot on. Just to ride on that, data engineering has become a key entryway, or maybe a prerequisite for scaling AI in the enterprise. So a lot of companies, the misconception is hurry up and do AI. Like, well, wait a minute, it'll be garbage in, garbage out. If you don't, most companies have to do a kind of a massive engineering effort on their data, because most of AI is going to be based on the cleanliness of the data that you're pulling from in an enterprise. So we do a lot of work there. And the other point you made on software, just to tell you a funny anecdote. So when I was a kid and doing software programming, the thing I hated most was comments. You'd write the code, and the professor or whoever would say, no, you got to write comments for the person that comes after you or debugging. And I was too lazy. I hated it. And then my son, who's also a programmer, better than me, he said, oh, Dad, with Copilot, everything's reversed. Remember when you had to write comments? Now, as a programmer, all you do is write the comments into GitHub Copilot, and the code writes itself. And you might have to clean it up, but it's just completely reversed of how it used to be. Anybody can write code now. You just have to be able to speak a language and type it in normal language, natural language syntax, and then code gets developed. Poof. It's amazing.
It is amazing. And it's interesting you brought up data. And one thing that I've found talking to some of our clients, even looking at internally some of the things we've gone through, is it's really highlighting the things in IT that we should have been doing all along. Data cleanliness, standing document versions, document currency, especially when you start feeding a lot of documents into a platform for agentic AI and you want to write something. If things are out of date or not versioned correctly, those things matter now. And it starts calling into focus those things that should have been great IT practices all along that are now more critical than ever.
I like the way you put that. Yep, exactly.
Great. So let's dive deeper into some of the practical implementation. We talked a little bit about this, but from your conversations with industry, what are some of the most impactful use cases of AI that's really emerging right now? You've talked a bit about agentic AI, Gen AI, but even some of the traditional AI. What do you see as really emerging right now in the enterprise?
Okay, right. That's kind of the question of the day, use cases. First of all, split the world into two. As you apply AI into an enterprise, there's renovating the existing IT or business process ops. So IT or business has already either outsourced or leaned on a provider to help them, and they've been doing that for years. But if an organization picks the correct providers who are really using AI ops, 30, 40, 50, we've gotten up to 58% savings in some of the transactions that we manage if providers are really applying AI ops in your basic IT sourcing or business process sourcing activities. In a way, it's kind of vanilla. It's not it's not a use case with a lot of sizzle. It's just IT sourcing, but humongous savings. And that funds a lot of things. And then outside of renovating the existing, it's building the new enterprise that's AI ready. And we talked about data engineering. Governance is a huge part of that, making sure you have the right network storage and compute infrastructure, making sure you have an operating model. So we kind of build out that. And then you get to actual use cases, far and away, everything around BI and analytics. So if you're doing some kind of data analysis, that's a shoe-in as one of the early use cases for AI. Anything around customer relationship, customer experience, call centers. So we talked about agentic AI, how people, how when you call, 1-800 number, you get the phone tree, press 1 if it's an emergency, 2 if it's a doctor, and you're like, pressing 0 or you're screaming agent or representative.
Oh,
Now
yeah.
the companies are deploying agents, agentic AI with these autonomous capabilities, and a call center would be a really good one, or like an 800 number where it has access to all the up-to-date data. It actually will track the words you use and the tone of voice you use, and it might realize that you're upset and quickly offer you a coupon or quickly escalate you to a manager because they recognize that you're upset. And whereas today I like to press 0 or yell agent, from what I've seen from what our enterprise clients are doing, very shortly, I'll never want to speak to a human, or very rarely. I think the AI is going to be smarter, faster, better with a nice voiceover. The other, anything around content, I do a lot of marketing. My team does marketing. So much of what we do now leverages some of these prompt chat GPT elements. They're different flavors, but that's a huge one. Advertising industry is completely turned upside down. Now companies churn out ads so much quicker because they're doing creatives via AI. So where it used to take maybe weeks to do a creative design for, B2C company, now they're churning that out in days and weeks. So that we touched on software development. Those are a few of the large ones, but like I had mentioned before, when I talked about kind of treasury as just kind of a random area that falls on the bottom of our surveys, it's hard pressed to find any knowledge work that someone's doing that won't be transformed by AI. That's the tidal wave. When I call it a tidal wave, it means it's washing over all of us, especially the people who are thinking, oh, it's everybody but me. Whoever you are, if you're thinking it's not you, beware. It's coming after all of us. And it'll make our lives better, but you kind of want to see it coming and be able to adjust accordingly. How does that sound to you? Does that resonate with what you're seeing at Ensono?
It absolutely does. I mean, you started off talking this segment a little bit about like AI ops, and it's interesting and especially using machine learning, is this really changing the service provider industry in a bigger way. Is so much in the service providers of the last couple decades have been just monitor, react, respond, keep the lights on, everybody's happy type of thing. But now using AI ops and using machine learning to be more predictive, start looking at patterns of behavior and look at observations of applications against history. So maybe you see a blip that wouldn't trigger an alert in the old days, but now it's showing that something's different in that application. It could be they released a marketing blitz that you weren't aware of, or maybe someone's trying to hack the system. But it gives an opportunity to now look at things and bring things forward when you're talking to a client about their environment that they may not know. So you can start offering proactive advice like, hey, if you did this, maybe you can save money or increase the security profile or do something different. So I think the AI ops piece is really interesting. It's an area that really changing how service providers can provide value on top of just the normal respond and react. And that's something we in Ensono believe very strongly. I think also building on the marketing side, just how do you respond? I mean, even some of the things that you look at how operations, like you're doing a root cause analysis, something we're doing a lot of work in this area is you're on calls with troubleshooting, you're recording those calls, you're putting all together, and you need to put a root cause analysis together. Now you can use agentic AI, and AI in general says, okay, using the 5 whys, listening to this recording and all the notes, tell me what the root cause of this is. And it's coming back with some really fascinating things that used to take weeks and tens of engineers to sit down and really dig through it all. And you're coming up with the first draft of something in 30, 45 seconds of which you can go validate. It's just really mind-blowing just what this technology can do.
It's mind-blowing. It's funny, like it'll play tricks on you too. Like LinkedIn, if you're doing a LinkedIn post, there's a little button. You don't even have to go out of LinkedIn and go to an AI prompt, because right there in LinkedIn, there's a button. So I tried that and I did it a few times because it made my words maybe more grammatically correct and perfect, but it took away my personality. So I stopped doing it. So sometimes it's like, okay, even though there's help right there, if you're writing something and you're trying to distinguish yourself by having a brand and a personality, you have to be careful. I wish it were so easy, like a recipe in a cookbook, but we're all learning at the same time.
It's amazing. We have all these tools that we're using, are building using ChatGPT or leveraging AIOps platforms. So what's really interesting is that you almost can't buy software or use software today, to your point about LinkedIn, that doesn't have this just inherently built in. And it's changing the questions you ask about security and how these things are used, and data relationships with your vendors and suppliers upstream. How do you see how enterprises should be thinking of some of these technologies as they become pretty much pervasive in any piece of software or platform you engage in these days?
I'll give you one example that's tricky, more from a marketer's point of view. We do a lot of search optimization like any company, and we're trying to make it so that when people go to Google or they're searching on the web, they'll find their way to our site. Your marketing team does the same. Everybody does it. But lo and behold, because of AI, suddenly there's this big trend away from the normal search engines, and people are using their AI chat, whether it's, Claude or ChatGPT or whatever. And that's becoming how they navigate through the web. So the marketing departments of organizations need to kind of rethink their SEO approach, because everything is geared toward the old model where we all just go to Google or whatever and do searches there. And now it's dramatic how quickly people are using like ChatGPT, and that will lead you to the website depending on what you're looking for. So it's just an example of how it kind of flips everything on its side, and you're like, okay, wait, I had a paradigm in my head that doesn't apply anymore, or it's starting to quickly evaporate.
Absolutely. Well, I guess looking forward. So as an optimist, definitely you're an evangelist, you're passionate about this technology. Can you just definitely tell that talking to you? What excites you most about the future of AI and enterprise IT? I mean, where do you really see what 5 years look like? That seems like an eternity as fast as this technology is moving, but how do you think about the future?
Well, I'm excited, worried, and scared all at once. So I'm definitely excited and I'm optimistic. I wouldn't say I'm a zealot, but I've seen enough. I've seen enough over the years. I've seen inflection points that weren't. There's an element of this that is exciting as it is. I get a little worried because there's a danger aspect of it maybe getting a little bit out of control if there's not the right controls. It's very, very powerful. So to me, there's very few inflection points that happen. Obviously, remember back before there was a web, we didn't have this. That was a big inflection point. There was a time when none of us were able to take laptops around with us. It was a big inflection point when we can do that. But this one's probably bigger than that. The only thing I can compare it to, it has nothing to do with technology. I happened to be in Berlin for the first time earlier this year, back in September, and it's pretty cool to see the Berlin Wall when you're a baby boomer, very, very young baby boomer. Okay. But I'm a baby boomer and I grew up with the Cold War was all I knew. And the Berlin Wall was the symbol of the Cold War. And I just assumed everybody assumed the Berlin Wall and the Cold War would go on throughout our entire lifetimes and our kids' life. You just didn't imagine. We didn't have the imagination that it would suddenly go away. November 9th, 1989 was like a Thursday that began like any other Thursday. And when that day ended, the Berlin Wall was down and the Cold War was over. And the reason why I compare it to that is nobody imagined it. No, CIA, MI5, KGB, academics, nobody had articles out there saying, well, maybe the Berlin Wall is going to fall like in the next year. No. And it changed our world for the better. And, kind of changed everything, sort of. And I view AI, even though there have been fake outs back when I was in school and even when my kid was in school 10 years ago, it's clearly coming. Now I've seen enough to, be able to sort out a metaverse from an AI. This is hitting us, and we'll look back in 5 years and 10 years, maybe 15 years and say, okay, this was the biggest inflection point we ever went through. This will transform every aspect of our lives. It will create a new set of winners and losers in every industry. And it's, you just need to make sure that you're ready for it. I think it's something you can harness. Is going to be a big learning process over the next 5 years. And I think it makes knowledge work more fun and exciting. And you get to drop the drudgery and be more productive. I don't think it means you get to take the afternoons off, because it's just never how the world works. We're all going to be really busy. But I think as long as you go eyes open and learn about AI, I'll admit there was a time maybe for the first few months where I was personally lazy about it. And my brain wasn't clicking right. And boy, I have completely done a 180. I'm really deep into it, just convinced that this is a sea change for our businesses, for our personal lives, for the world. And then we need it. There's a little scary element. If you think back to that fun Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, Terminator, remember that Terminator came out in 1984. Okay. That was a long time ago, but guess what? The whole story was this crazy science fiction where a company built a neural network, and robots that were using the neural network needed the resources that the humans also needed. So they just followed their program and took over. And if you look at here's another interesting case study. AlphaGo is the team that created a neural network program about 10 years ago and ended up beating the world's top Go champion, a gentleman named Lee Sedol. He's like the Michael Jordan of Go. And not only was Lee Sedol, the Go champion, crushed, and the world of Go was shocked that this neural network, AlphaGo, beat it. Who was most surprised? The AlphaGo programmers. They didn't really understand how smart the system they built could be, as it looked at every Go game that had ever been played in 100 years and then did millions of games simulation and got smarter and smarter and smarter. And it just shows you, as we're experimenting with AI, hopefully governments and companies can band together and build guardrails so that as we're going through this exciting tidal wave, we don't do anything too crazy.
No, absolutely. Speaking of movies, it reminds me of an old movie when I was a young kid of War Games. Similar type of thing. Computer lays. It learns to. Yeah, it's amazing how prescient some of these movies were. If they could only see what technology looked like 20 years later. It's amazing looking at you look at what just NVIDIA is doing in the hardware market, some things that Ensono that we work closely, a strong partnership with IBM, and just how the mainframe is starting to become more relevant from a technology perspective in the AI space. So some of the new engines that IBM is building in the mainframe for companies like insurance and finance and healthcare and stuff like that. They're just the combination of the processing power, offloading this information, processing data, combining with cloud. We're seeing just a lot of opportunities where mainframe is, especially where clients use it, becoming more relevant in the AI space than it probably ever has been. And I think we're really kind of trying to be on the leading edge of how do you combine that capability with cloud computing, with data, with solving client problems. Is really an opportunity to see where hardware plus software plus just personal ingenuity really drives the future in some of these things.
I love that. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
So I guess just kind of a last question, just thinking about this, and you touched a little bit on this in your last segment, but for leaders who are hesitant to embrace AI, it's hard to believe that even at this day and age, there's still some people, whether it's security, whether it's just lack of skill sets, lack of knowledge. It's what is a low risk step they can take to start this journey? If someone's sitting back and says, yeah, I think it's the fake out still. What would you say to them?
Right. You need to take baby steps. And like at my firm, we have maybe 25 triple black belt AI experts, and I know Ensono has them too, but world-class experts. And I'm not one of them. And I use AI every day because it's not just for the super technical AI experts. So for me, I'm a CMO, I'm a marketing person. My marketing team, we use AI all the time. And I'd say my advice to anybody, marketing or not, find a Gen AI prompt that you like and try a few of them. We all started with ChatGPT. That's kind of the only one we knew for a few months. My team moved to one called Jasper, which is popular, and they like it. I actually became enamored with one called Claude from Anthropic. I just like the way it writes what I prompt in, but pick one. There's 10 different to choose from, whether you're writing a press release or a memo or a LinkedIn post. You'll be amazed at how smart they are, and they'll understand your voice. But you can find other tools. There's a translation. If you want to put an email or a PowerPoint or a video in another language that's not your native language, we use something called SmartCat, but there's so many to choose from. Try one of these avatars. I was kind of joking about avatars when we talked about metaverse, but if we're doing a corporate LinkedIn post, for example, there's a company called Synthesia, but it's one of many that make it so easy. You just kind of give it the words, and suddenly you've got like a video of person and their lips are in sync somehow, and they're spilling out the words that you gave. I would say whether it's, writing a memo, doing a PowerPoint, doing some translation, doing a video, the easiest thing would be to go to one of these Gen AI prompts. And you'll be surprised. Once you start, you'll say, okay, this is amazing, and it's relatively easy. And in no time, you'll feel like you have the upper hand, and suddenly you'll be in the in crowd. That's what happened to me. I had resisted it for a while. I don't know why, looking back, but I am so glad that the light bulb went off in my head and I dove in, and I feel like I'm on the cutting edge of just one of the more important things happening in our lifetime. It's thrilling.
I would agree. And I think one of the things that we've learned just from practical experience is you've got to put it in people's hands. You've got to let them work with it. We kind of built our own Enso AI, our own internal GPT, if you will, but we use the pre-trained models like a GPT-4o, kind of built it within Azure AI to give it a secure, tied it into our Active Directory so people could feel confidence. Like, well, I can go to this, I can upload documents and don't have to worry about it training an external model, all these horror stories you heard early on, but really putting these tools in the hands of your associates and just letting them be imaginative, be curious, and say, what can it do? Can it write a paper? Can it write your next job description? Can it take a doc and summarize the key points of it? I mean, there's so much stuff it can do. And I think for anybody that's maybe on the fence is just find a good, safe way to let your people explore, because humans are creative by nature. I've been curious by nature, I've found out, for the most part. And if you unshackle them within reason, they can do some pretty powerful stuff.
I think that's what it's all about. Right on. You nailed it.
Well, Paul, it's been great talking to you. I mean, I can tell you're passionate about this. I love your insights. I think this is going to be a very exciting time over the next, I could say few years, but as fast as this stuff moving, the next 6 months are going to be really exciting. So I really appreciate you taking the time to spend this Maven Cast with us and impart your knowledge and share some of your experiences.
Well, it's been fun discussion. Thanks, Tim. Everybody buckle your seatbelts. It's going to be a fun ride.
Thanks for listening to Maven Cast. For more Maven content, including articles, interviews, and videos, visit themavenreport.com.